Hi guys, welcome back. So today we're going over the short passage you did on Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever that was, and then going to do some prepositional phrases and some more reading. And we're going to read a passage at the end of the video here today that I want to go back over tomorrow when we do our live class at 8 a.m. So part of this lecture is to sort of read through that passage so we're not doing it totally at sight tomorrow. So that'll be good. And then tomorrow we can talk about the grammar of those sentences in more depth. So before we get started, just remember or realize that what we're working on now are a lot of third declension nouns and trying to get our third declension endings down while still reading sentences. So if you don't have those endings memorized, which you should, have them out somewhere where you can see them as we go through this stuff. So let's get started. Okay, so here's our passage from the other day. A couple sentences, we'll go through them one at a time. So, sunt pericula in Silvis Galliae. What's our verb? It's third plural, to be, there are, okay? And our subject is going to be pericula. This is a neuter noun, so that a means nominative plural here. So we could say there are dangers. Now we have a prepositional phrase, in Silvis, in with the ablative just means in. There are dangers in the woods. And now Galliae is genitive singular, the woods of Gaul. There are dangers in the woods of Gaul. This genitive is serving to what we call limit or define the noun Silvis. So which woods? Where are the woods? They're the woods of Gaul. Okay. Non est pax in Gallia quod Caesar cum militibus in Gallia est. So first thing to note is that I see the word quod, that subordinating conjunction meaning because. And so what that tells us is this is a complex sentence with a main clause and a subordinate clause. The main clause is the first one here, so let's handle that. So what's our verb? Non est. Just to be, third singular, but it's negated, non est. So there is not. And our nominative singular subject is going to be pax. There is not peace in Gallia. Okay, there's that preposition in with the ablative again. There's not peace in Gaul. Now, quod is going to kick off our subordinate clause. There's not peace in Gaul because now we have a new subject in this new subordinate clause. There's not peace in Gaul because Caesar, and I'm going to jump to the end and take our verb. Caesar is. Remember, Caesar's the subject within our subordinate clause. Caesar is in Gaul. Same prepositional phrase, because Caesar is in Gaul. Now we have a second prepositional phrase. Cum militibus, with his soldiers. So cum with the ablative. This is an ablative of accompaniment. And the whole sentence then, there is not peace in Gaul because Caesar is in Gaul with his soldiers. Okay, and as we're seeing a lot of these prepositional phrases, remember that usually it's going to be preposition and then the noun should come directly after it. Sometimes you'll get disruptions in that word order, but it's not that often. Okay, so if you're trying to figure out which nouns go which prepositions, usually they're right next to each other. Okay, third one, sunt vie in provincia. So we just have the verb to be again, right? Third plural, there are. Now we need a nominative plural subject if we have one. Va can be nominative plural, first declension. There are roads. And same thing, in with the ablative. There are roads in the province. There are roads in the province. Fourth one, populus ducem militum propter virtutem laudat. So let's look at our verb, laudat, third singular present active. He, she, it praises. Okay, do we have a nominative singular subject? Populus, that's nominative singular. So we could say the people praises. The people praises. And now this is the first sentence here where we have a transitive verb. Remember, transitive means a verb that can take a direct object. So let's look for that. What case are direct objects in Latin? Accusative. So I see two things that could be accusative singular. We have ducem, accusative singular masculine. and virtutem, accusative singular feminine. Now, we have to decide which one's the direct object. Well, virtutem has a preposition right next to it, propter, and a propter is a preposition that takes the ablative case. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that propter virtutem is not the direct object. It's a prepositional phrase. And we'll take ducem as the direct object. So the people praises the leader. The people praises the leader. Now, militum, third declension, don't get confused. This is genitive plural. And this is, again, this is a genitive defining this noun ducem, okay? So it's the leader, which leader? The leader of what? Well, the leader of the soldiers, genitive plural, the leader of the soldiers. And now we have our prepositional phrase, propter virtutem, because of excellence. Remember, virtue works as a translation. The noun really means excellent of its kind. So that's how we'll do it. So whole thing, the people praises the leader of the soldiers because of his excellence. Okay, and last one. Romani vias in provincia muniverant. Okay, this is a little hard, and I changed this, as you'll see in a minute, but muniverant, our book gives you like certain verb forms that are perfect forms, which we haven't really learned. It's a past tense. Perfect forms, and they just have you memorize them. So this means they built. This is third plural, perfect, active. They built. Okay, third plural though, so do we have a nominative plural subject? Yeah, we got Romani, that could be nominative plural. The Romans built. Okay, and muniverant, that's a transitive verb. We're looking for a direct object now. The Romans built what? And we need an accusative noun. Vias is accusative plural, right? So the Romans built roads in provincia, in with the ablative. The Romans built roads in the province. So altogether, there are dangers in the woods of Gaul. There's not peace in Gaul because Caesar is with his soldiers in Gaul. There are roads in the province. The people praise the leader of the soldiers because of his excellence. The Romans built roads in the province. Okay, and your translations looked pretty good, those of you who did this, which is about half. We had one multiple choice. Ducem in the fourth sentence is, well, let's see. The people praise Ducem, the leader. It's an accusative direct object. So the direct object. And that was homework from the other day. And as you'll see, it's in this document titled Latin 1 Sentences. I added the rest of this exercise, so we're going to go through that right now together and then move on. So where did we finish off? Romani vias and the Romans were building roads in the province. Now, since I'm going to be pulling your final exam from all the sentences in this particular document, I changed those perfect verbs that they keep giving you into imperfects, so you can recognize them more easily. Okay, but now we've got a few more here, so let's go through and again be paying attention to how I'm approaching these sentences. So next one we've got est pax in caelo. Est pax in caelo. So the verb to be again, and we have it's third singular, and we have a nominative singular noun, third declension noun as our subject. So there is peace. And then we just have a prepositional phrase. Again, get used to seeing in with the ablative. There is peace in heaven. Capital C, caelo. Okay, quick note, all these uses of the verb to be we keep getting they're called existential, remember? So we're not saying like peace is good, that's copulative, or like a linking verb. These are existential uses of the verb to be. So we're just saying peace exists in heaven. Similar syntax here. So now we have third plural to be. So there are. Christiani can be our third plural, or pardon me, nominative plural subject. There are Christians in caelo, in heaven. In pace et bello Christiani orant. Okay, different here. Let's find our verb. Orant, third plural present active. They pray. Now, do we have a nominative plural noun that can be our subject? The Christians pray, Christiani. The Christians pray. And now we have really two separate prepositional phrases, but they're being governed by one preposition. It's going to translate in peace and war. And like, that's fine to do in English. You don't need to say, if you don't want to, in peace and in war. You just have one preposition governing the whole thing. That's what's going on here. So we've got in, and then pace, ablative singular feminine, third declension, and bello, ablative singular neuter, second declension. And they're just joined by a conjunction. So the Christians pray in peace and in war. Okay? Sunt milites in via. Sunt milites in via. Here's to be being used existentially again. Third plural, there are. There are what? We need a nominative plural subject. Milites, third declension, nominative plural. There are soldiers. And now we just have another good old in with the ablative. In the street, in the road, on the path. Any of those work. There are soldiers in the street. Si Kaiser militibus premia virtutis dabat quod Gallos vincebant. Okay, a little harder here. Now, I see quote again, so this is a complex sentence with a subordinate clause. And by the way, when we have the conjunction because, that's what we call a causal kind of subordinate clause. Okay, so whatever the main clause happens to be, it's true because of the conditions of the subordinate clause. Okay, so let's find our main clause. Everything until we hit quote, that'll be our main clause. And what's the verb in the main clause? It's dabat. Dabat. So this is from do, dare, to give, and I see ba in the middle of it. That'll tell us imperfect. So third singular imperfect active. He, she, it was giving. Okay, do we have a nominative singular subject? Yes, we do. Caesar. His name is a third declension noun. This is nominative singular. So Caesar was giving. Okay, give is a transitive verb. And remember too, give likes to take a dative indirect object. You give something in the accusative to someone in the dative. So Caesar was giving premia. Premia is neuter, accusative plural here, that short A. Caesar was giving rewards. And then we have a nice dative plural here, third declension, militibus, to the soldiers. Caesar was giving rewards to the soldiers. Now we have one more noun, virtutis, third declension. You should recognize this as genitive singular. So we think, how do we get a genitive singular into that clause? Caesar was giving rewards to the soldiers. Okay, again, remember the genitive serves to define or limit other nouns. And usually it's going to be kind of near the noun that it's doing that with. Well, it's right near premia. So maybe it's answering what kind of rewards, or rewards for what, rather. So and this is from virtus, excellence. So let's try it this way. Caesar was giving the rewards of excellence to the soldiers. What does that mean? The rewards for excellence. So the soldiers who were excellent get rewards. And that's how that genitive fits in there. Okay, that's our main clause. Now we have quod, because, and then everything from quod till we hit the next verb is a subordinate clause. So Caesar was giving the rewards of excellence to the soldiers because vincebant. They were conquering. Third plural imperfect active. They were conquering. Now what makes sense as the subject of the subordinate clause? Well, it's going to be militibus. This is a little tricky, but it's the only thing that makes sense. He was giving rewards to the soldiers because they, the soldiers, were conquering Gallos in the accusative plural. Were conquering the Gauls. And yeah, I know this is dative plural in the main clause. Just carry it over and make it nominative and take it as the subject of our subordinate clause. So whole thing, Caesar was giving the rewards of virtue to the soldiers because they were conquering the Gauls. Okay, last one here. Duces Gallorum oppida muniebant. Where's our verb? Muniebant, third plural imperfect active. It means build. So they were building. Now we need a nominative plural. Duces, third declension, nominative plural. The leaders we're building, and you build, it's a transitive verb, so you build something that's accusative. We have opida, neuter, accusative, plural. The leaders were building towns. Now, we have another genitive we got to fit in somehow, and it's right next to leaders. So let's take it as defining duces. The leaders of whom? The leaders of the Gauls were building towns. Got it? Okay, so quick pause here. That was some more translating. Now we're going to go through these 11 prepositional phrases, and they're mainly working with third declension nouns. Okay, I'm going to translate all of them, and then in your homework, you're going to get 4 or 5 of them. Okay, so just pay attention. Homework should be real easy if you're with us here. And then I'm just going to read through the paragraph that's underneath it, and that's what we're going to go through tomorrow when we're live. For homework tonight, though, I'm going to pick one sentence out of that passage and then ask you to translate it and talk about the syntax of one of the words. And remember, syntax means what the word is doing in the sentence. So pay attention for the homework tonight, and then we'll get you out of here. So exercise 44, these are phrases and or prepositional phrases. So pars hostium, this is going to be a part of the enemies, and pars is nominative. Now this hostium, this genitive, is a special kind of genitive we call a partitive genitive. So it's anytime you have a part of some large group, or 3 of my friends, or most of the women, something like that. Partitive genitive, so a part of the enemies. 2, propter cadem gentium. Now we got a preposition, propter, and 2 nouns. How do we know what goes with what? Propter takes the accusative case. Cadem is accusative singular. Gentium is genitive plural. So they're both third declension. So it's got to be propter cadem, because of the slaughter, gentium, of the clans, of the families. That's kind of a dark sentence, I guess, but that's how it'll work out. Because of the slaughter of the clans. And gentium is a genitive defining cadem, the slaughter of whom, of what. Okay, 3, cum hostibus, pretty easy. Just cum with the ablative, with the enemies. 4, in cole, in with the ablative, on a hill. Now you see in can kind of shift between in, on. Got to take the noun in question and translate it like we would do most naturally in English, because in the hill doesn't make sense unless they burrowed into it. And then I don't think they're hobbits. All right, post cadem gallorum, same thing. Post needs the accusative case with it, so it's going to be post cadem, after the slaughter. And now the slaughter of whom? Of the Gauls. Genitive defining cadem. 6, in oppidis hostium. In the towns, in with the ablative, in the towns, hostium, of the enemies. And this is just a good old possessive genitive. Whose towns? The towns of the enemies. Although you can see how possession is a form of defining or limiting. In colibus, now we've got in with the ablative again, just like 4 in cole, on the hill, but now cole is plural, so on the hills, or we could even say in the hills, right? Like the town is in the hills. That makes sense. Number 8, rex gentium. So king, nominative singular, the king, gentium, of the nations, of the peoples, of the clans. Genitive defining king. What king? Number 9, post colem. So post with the accusative case can mean after, if we're talking about time. So post cata, after the slaughter of the Gauls. Here we have after the hill. That doesn't make very much sense. But remember, post can also mean behind. So we could say behind the hill. 10, gentibus. So this is just a noun. It's dative or ablative plural. What if we wanted it to be dative, we could just say 2 or 4 of the nations. Right? Just a good old dative translation. And 11, post cadem hostium. Post cadem hostium. Okay, so post cadem, after the slaughter. Now we have so it's like number 5, post cadem gallorum, after the slaughter of the Gauls. We know which slaughter because of the genitive noun. It's limiting cadem. Here we have a different genitive noun, hostium. So after the slaughter of the enemies, different situation. Okay, again, there's going to be, I think, 4 of those on your homework. So take a look at those. And finally, I'm just going to read through this. This is what we're going to do tomorrow. So I'm really hoping everyone watches to the end of this video so that we can go through these sentences smoothly. I'm guessing that only about half of you are watching the video at all, which is what it seems to have been. So that's okay. But for those of you who are with me on this, here's what we have. Duces Romanorum hostes in cole vincebant. The leaders of the Romans were conquering the enemies on the hill. Propter caedem militum bellum in Gallia est. Because of the slaughter of the soldiers, there is a war in Gaul. Sunt pericula in Gallia quod Galli hostes Romanorum sunt. There are dangers in Gaul because the Gauls are the enemies of the Romans. Christus est rex populorum et salus hominum quod Deus est. Christ is the king of the peoples and the salvation of men because he is God. Pars hostium in Silvis est, sed pars in cole, sed pars est in cole. A part of the enemies is in the woods, but a part of the enemies, again, is on the hill. I think this is the one I put in homework. So a part of the enemies, I'm going to say are in the woods, even though it's a singular verb. A part of the enemies are in the woods, but I'll keep it grammatically correct. A part of the enemies is in the woods, but a part is on the hill. And I think I asked you about pars here. Pars is our nominative singular subject, and then hostium is this partitive genitive. Okay, in Gallia sunt coles et silvae et oppida et viae. In Gaul, there are hills and forests and towns and roads. Or you could not repeat and. In Gaul, there are hills, forests, towns, and roads. Both work. All those nominative plurals are the subjects of that verb to be sunt. Romani reges et gentes Galliae vincebant. The Romans were conquering the kings and the tribes of Gaul. Okay, a little tough. We're going to take Romani as our nominative plural subject, and then reges et gentes can both be accusative plural, third declension, direct objects. The Romans were conquering the kings and families of Gaul and tribes of Gaul, something like that. Propter salutum populi et pacem provinciarum Romani vias muniebant. Difficult, but we'll take it left to right. Because of the safety of the people and, repeat the preposition, propter, because of the peace of the provinces, the Romans were building roads. Okay, in a little more natural English, the Romans were building roads on account of the safety of the people and the peace of the provinces. That's why they were building roads. Homines virtutem et veritatem laudant. So men praise excellence and truth. Men praise excellence and truth. Okay, last one here. Post caedem hostium Kaiser milites propter virtutem laudat. So after the slaughter of the enemies, Caesar praises the soldiers because of their excellence. Okay, again, tomorrow 8 a.m. should plan on it, and yeah, and we'll square up on things, and then go through that passage together and talk about the grammar in a little more detail. So that's that. Again, take a look at the homework for tonight, and until tomorrow, we'll see you.